Right now, on the streets of Paris and London and Berlin, one motorcycle brand is everywhere. Parked outside cafes, weaving through traffic, lined up at weekend rallies across the English countryside. If you are American, there is a solid chance you cannot even pronounce this company's name. But the roots of this brand trace back to England in 1851, and the motorcycle itself dates to 1901. It died, came back to life on the other side of the world, and is now quietly dominating Europe's mid-size motorcycle market on a continent where BMW and Ducati and Triumph have home field advantage. The brand is Royal Enfield. And before we get into what is happening in Europe right now, you need to understand where this company came from, because the origin story reads like something out of a novel. It starts in 1851. A man named George Townsend opens a needle-making workshop in Redditch, Worcestershire, deep in the English Midlands. This is a small industrial town, famous for its workshops and factories, and surrounded by green, rolling countryside. Within a few decades, the Townsend Company wins a contract supplying precision rifle parts to the Royal Small Arms Factory in Enfield, Middlesex. That is where the name comes from, Royal Enfield. From day one, their motto was "Made like a gun." By 1901, Royal Enfield unveils their very first motorcycle at the Stanley Cycle Show in London. It is a crude machine by modern standards, basically a bicycle frame with a small engine bolted on, but it works. The Bullet model arrives in 1932, and what nobody could have predicted is that this single design would go on to become the longest-running motorcycle model in the entire history of the industry, over 90 years in production. During World War II, Royal Enfield does something absolutely remarkable. They build a motorcycle called the Flying Flea. This was a tiny 125 cubic centimeters machine specifically engineered to be folded up, strapped to a wooden pallet, and dropped by parachute for use by airborne forces behind enemy lines. The Flying Flea was developed for British paratroopers during operations across Europe, designed to give them mobile transport the moment they hit the ground. That is not a marketing story. That actually happened. But then the 1960s arrived, and everything changed. Honda and Yamaha and Suzuki and Kawasaki flooded markets around the world with machines that were cheaper, smoother, more reliable, and more technologically advanced than anything rolling off the production line in the English Midlands. British motorcycle manufacturing, which had once dominated the world, started collapsing brand by brand. BSA went under, Norton went under, Triumph barely survived, and Royal Enfield was no exception. The Redditch factory shut its doors in 1967. Full production ground to a halt by 1970. And in 1971, the original Royal Enfield Company in England officially dissolved. In Britain, the original Royal Enfield Company was effectively finished. The factory was empty. The machine stopped. Except it wasn't. And this is where it gets strange. 16 years before that factory closure, on the other side of the planet, the Indian government had placed an order for 800 Royal Enfield bullets. They needed tough, dependable motorcycles for military and police patrols along the rugged border between India and Pakistan, up in the mountain passes of Kashmir and through the dusty flatlands of Rajasthan. That single order led to a licensed assembly operation in Madras, the city we now call Chennai, on the southeastern coast of India. By 1962, every single component in those bullets was being manufactured locally on Indian soil. So when the British parent company collapsed, the Indian factory just kept running, year after year. The same thumping single-cylinder engine, the same classic silhouette, bulletproof in its simplicity. The bikes developed a cult following across India, especially among riders who loved the raw mechanical character, the deep exhaust note that bounced off mountain walls, and the sense that you were riding something with actual history behind it. But for decades, these were considered charming relics at best, leaky, unreliable, and technologically stuck in the 1950s. The company that owned the brand, the Eicher Group, had acquired full ownership back in 1994, but Royal Enfield was barely keeping the lights on. Annual production hovered around 50,000 units. And then the board of directors held a meeting where they seriously discussed shutting the entire operation down. That meeting changed the course of motorcycle history. A 26-year-old walked into the room and asked for one more chance. His name was Siddhartha Lal, Born in Delhi, educated in economics with an MBA from a UK business school, his family controlled the Eicher Group, and in 2000 he took over as chief executive officer of a company that nobody believed in anymore. Lal later described that pivotal boardroom conversation with disarming honesty. The directors agreed to give him a shot, he said, not because they had any confidence in him, but because the business was already doing so badly that it could hardly get any worse. Those were his words. What Siddhartha Lal did next, over the following decade, was equal parts ruthless and brilliant. He looked at the Eicher Group's sprawling portfolio of 15 different business divisions, everything from truck axles to shoes, and he slashed 13 of them. Gone. He redirected every available resource into Royal Enfield. He shut down old production lines and built a massive modern factory complex at Oragadam, about 40 kilometers outside Chennai, in the lush green Tamil Nadu countryside. He poached top-tier engineers and industrial designers from companies around the world. He invested in quality control systems that would have been unthinkable a decade earlier, but the move that really turned heads came in 2015. Siddhartha Lal personally relocated from Delhi to London. He acquired Harris Performance Products, a legendary British motorcycle chassis engineering firm that had built frames for Grand Prix racing teams. And he established the Royal Enfield UK Technology Centre, housed at Bruntingthorpe Proving Grounds in Leicestershire, right in the heart of the English Midlands. According to Bennett's, the major UK motorcycle insurer, this facility now employs around 160 engineers drawn from 16 different countries, all focused on designing the next generation of Royal Enfield motorcycles. Sit with that for a second. An Indian-owned company carrying the name of a dead British brand opens a major technology center in the English countryside, with an investment reported at around £100 million, hires engineers from across Europe, designs motorcycles on British soil that get built in Chennai and then shipped back to sell on the same streets where Royal Enfield first rode in 1901. This company literally went home. And the numbers tell you just how well this comeback has worked. Royal Enfield went from 50,000 motorcycles per year in 2010 to over 1 million by fiscal 2025, which ended in March. That is a 20-fold increase in 15 years. Motorcycles data, which tracks global registrations on a calendar year basis, reports full year 2025 came in even higher at 1.18 million units worldwide, a 27% jump from the previous year, marking a third consecutive annual sales record. The company's current CEO, B. Govindarajan, captured the scope of this transformation when he said, going from 50,000 bikes feeling like a big win to setting new global benchmarks has been an incredible journey. But here is where the story becomes about Europe specifically. Royal Enfield did not just grow in India, it grew into a genuine force on European roads, and the data behind that is remarkable. In the 250 to 750 cubic centimeter motorcycle segment, which is where the majority of everyday European riders actually buy their bikes, Royal Enfield has become the dominant force in the United Kingdom. In June 2020, the Interceptor 650 became the best-selling motorcycle over 125 cubic centimeters in all of Britain for that month, outselling the BMW R1250 GS and every Japanese competitor. That was a first for any Indian-made motorcycle. It was not a one-off. Royal Enfield went on to lead the United Kingdom's middleweight segment for an extended period, becoming one of the country's standout sales stories in the modern classic category. And it is not just a British phenomenon. According to Royal Enfield's own leadership, the brand ranked third in both France and Italy in the midsize segment as of their fiscal 2023 year. The company has built a substantial dealer presence across France, including a flagship store in the heart of Paris. Spain has a flagship in central Madrid. Royal Enfield joined ACEM, the official European Motorcycle Manufacturers Association, in 2023, a signal that the industry establishment now takes this brand seriously. The modern classic segment where Royal Enfield primarily competes grew over 31% in the United Kingdom during 2024 alone, according to Bennett's, making it the fastest growing motorcycle category in the country. Export numbers from Eicher Motors' own filings reinforce the momentum. June 2025 saw over 12,500 export shipments from India, a 79% year-over-year increase. July hit nearly 12,000 units, up 95%. First quarter international sales for fiscal 2026 reached 36,749 motorcycles, a 65% jump. So why are Europeans buying these bikes in such volume? The answer is almost embarrassingly straightforward: price. At recent United Kingdom pricing, an Interceptor 650 costs around £7,000 at a Royal Enfield dealer. Walk across the street to a Triumph dealer, and a comparable Bonneville T100 runs closer to £9,800. That is roughly a 30% premium for a motorcycle that many reviewers have argued actually loses to the Royal Enfield on handling, fun factor, and obviously cost. The Hunter 350, Royal Enfield's entry-level roadster, starts at just £3,899. You simply cannot walk into any other major manufacturer's showroom and ride out on a new, stylish, retro-styled motorcycle at that price. And here is a detail that is easy to miss if you are not plugged into European riding culture. The A2 motorcycle license, which is mandatory for new riders across the European Union, caps engine output at approximately 47 horsepower. Royal Enfield's 650 cubic centimeters parallel twin engine produces about 47 horsepower. That is not a coincidence. That is a product engineered from the ground up to fit the single largest pool of new motorcycle buyers in Europe like a glove. Every 18-year-old who gets their A2 license is a potential Royal Enfield customer from day one. If you're enjoying this deep dive, hit subscribe. I cover motorcycle industry stories like this every single week, the kind of stuff you won't find in your typical moto vlog, because Royal Enfield is only part of this picture. And what comes next in this story might genuinely shock you. There is an entire wave of motorcycle brands flooding European roads right now that the average American rider has never encountered. They are not coming from Japan or Italy or Germany, they are coming from China. Consider Zontes, founded in 2003 in Guangdong Province, China. As of 2025, Zontes is the third largest motorcycle brand in all of Spain, one of the biggest motorcycle markets in Europe, ahead of BMW, Kawasaki, KTM, Ducati, and Suzuki. Sales in Spain grew 140% in a single year. Across all of Europe, the brand grew nearly 90%. In Italy alone, it surged over 108%. Zontes has absolutely zero presence in the United States. Not a single dealer, not a single showroom. A top 3 brand in a major European market, and the entire American motorcycle community has never seen one in person. Then there is CF Moto, headquartered in Hangzhou, China, with a partnership with KTM dating back to 2011. From January through September 2025, Ride Apart reports that CF Moto registered 4,741 motorcycles in France, ranking ahead of Ducati at 3,175, KTM at 2,977, and Suzuki at 3,936, all on French soil. In 2024, CF Moto's factory racing team won the Moto3 World Championship Triple Crown, taking the rider title, the constructor title, and the team title. There is a caveat. The CF Moto Moto3 bike is essentially a rebadged KTM, designed and built in Austria, so the claim of the first Chinese Grand Prix world champion comes with a caveat. The FIM officially lists CF Moto as the constructor of record, and the brand received global publicity either way. And there is Voge, a subsidiary of Lansin, the Chinese company that quietly built BMW's F-Series motorcycle engines for 2 decades. According to Motorcycles data, Voge outsold BMW by unit volume in both Spain and Italy for the full year 2025, ranking 4th in Spain and 6th in Italy. The brand grew over 70% across Europe in 2025. Voge motorcycles are not sold anywhere in the United States or Canada. Zoom out and the combined picture is staggering. According to ACEM, the official European motorcycle industry body, registrations across Europe's 5 largest markets dropped nearly 13% in 2025, largely because manufacturers front-loaded sales before stricter Euro 5+ emissions rules kicked in. But Chinese brands were the only segment posting explosive growth in the same period. Chinese motorcycle exports to Europe in the first half of 2025 reached $960 million, representing 793,000 individual units, according to industry trade data. That is a 40% year-over-year increase. French automotive media outlet Caradisiac described this shift as structural competition for traditional European manufacturers, not a blip, a permanent realignment. So with all of this happening across the Atlantic, the question becomes unavoidable. Why is America completely dark? For Royal Enfield specifically, the infrastructure gap tells the story. The brand operates about 150 dealerships spread across 47 states and territories, according to dealer location data tracked by Scrape Hero. That works out to roughly one Royal Enfield dealer for every 2.2 million Americans. Harley-Davidson, by contrast, has well over 700 dealers. The vast majority of Royal Enfield US locations are multi-brand shops where the motorcycles compete for floor space and salesperson attention against BMW, Triumph, and Indian Motorcycle. Milwaukee, Wisconsin has served as the company's North American base since 2015. American market share sits well under 1% of approximately 581,000 annual motorcycle registrations. Honda commands somewhere between 20% and 38% of the market, depending on the segment. Harley-Davidson holds roughly 27%. The top 5 established brands collectively control 79% of American motorcycle sales. The oxygen available for any newcomer is vanishingly thin. There is also a reputation problem that money alone cannot solve overnight. Revzilla, one of the most trusted voices in American motorcycling, laid it out plainly. Years of neglect in the American market left the Royal Enfield name associated with questionable reliability, uneven build quality, and a lack of consistent dealer support. Now, the new generation bikes built on modern platforms are dramatically better than what Royal Enfield sold even 5 years ago. But reputation damage compounds over years, and it takes years to undo. Riders who had a bad experience with a 2016 Classic 500 are not automatically going to trust a 2025 Guerrilla 450, no matter how many press reviews say otherwise. And honestly, American motorcycle culture itself creates a headwind. The US market gravitates hard toward big displacement cruisers and high-horsepower sport machines. Harley-Davidson alone controls nearly 75% of the touring motorcycle segment in America. When the average American pictures a motorcycle, they picture a Road Glide or a Ninja or a Goldwing, not a 47-horsepower retro twin that tops out at about 100 miles per hour. In Europe, motorcycles serve as daily transportation, commuter tools, city runabouts. In America, motorcycles are overwhelmingly lifestyle and recreation purchases. Royal Enfield's sweet spot of affordable, characterful middleweights meets a fundamentally different kind of demand. But this story is about more than sales spreadsheets and dealer counts, because what Royal Enfield has built in Europe goes beyond product. They have built a community, and it is enormous. The annual One Ride event, launched in 2011, has grown into the largest single-day organized community motorcycle ride in the world. According to Visordown, the 2024 edition drew 41,730 riders from 66 countries. The 2025 edition saw 40,000 riders across 1,500 separate rideouts on every inhabited continent. And the Europe versus America contrast is almost comical. Nearly 10,000 European riders participated across 313 organized events. In the United States, roughly 100 riders across 9 events. The Riders Club of Europe, launched in 2021, offers free membership with organized group rides, advanced rider training, factory showroom previews, international touring trips, and charity partnership events across the continent. Arun Gopal, Royal Enfield's head of European business, describes riders as the real custodians of the brand. European motorcycle journalists consistently frame the Royal Enfield appeal as something experiential rather than technical. UK reviewers have acknowledged that competitors like the Kawasaki Z650 win on raw smoothness and refinement. But Royal Enfield wins on handling, on fun, and obviously on price. Nordic Riders, a Scandinavian motorcycle community, described the ownership philosophy as being about smiles per mile rather than top speed. And Bennett's called the brand's entire transformation an unsung success story, describing it as a journey from dated budget oddity to a value-driven motorcycle beloved by riders who have grown tired of overpriced, overcomplicated alternatives from the big European and Japanese brands. And the brand is not slowing down, not even a little. Royal Enfield enters its 125th anniversary year in 2026 with the most aggressive product offensive the company has ever mounted. The current lineup already spans 3 distinct engine platforms. The 350 cubic centimeter range, which includes the Hunter, Classic, Meteor, Bullet, and the new Gone Classic, starts from just £3,899 in the UK and $3,999 in the United States. The new 450 cubic centimeter Sherpa engine platform, a modern liquid-cooled single producing 40 horsepower, powers both the Himalayan 450 adventure bike and the Gorilla 450 urban roadster. And the beloved 650 cubic centimeter parallel twin continues in the Interceptor 650, Continental GT 650, Bear 650, Shotgun 650, Super Meteor 650, and the new Classic 650. But the future product pipeline is where things get really interesting. The Flying Flea C6, Royal Enfield's first ever electric motorcycle, is set to launch in spring 2026. The name is not random, it is a deliberate callback to the World War II parachute motorcycle built for airborne forces. Powersports Business reports the Flying Flea C6 features neo-retro styling, is targeted at under 100 kilograms, and runs its electronics on a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor. A scrambler-styled variant called the Flying Flea S6 was revealed at EICMA Milan in late 2025 and is expected to follow later in the year. Reports from Cycle World and Ride Apart also point to a new 750 cubic centimeter engine platform under development, potentially appearing as a Continental GT 750 and Himalayan 750, specifically targeting the North American and European markets, where riders want more displacement for sustained highway riding. Meanwhile, Eicher Motors Board has approved expanding production capacity at the Tamil Nadu manufacturing complex to 2 million motorcycles per year, with construction expected to finish around 2028, 2 million. For perspective, Harley-Davidson builds roughly 180,000 bikes a year. BMW Motorrad builds about 210,000. Royal Enfield is planning to build almost 10 times that number. And that brings us to the one statistic that puts this entire story into sharp focus. CEO Siddhartha Lal has stated it in public interviews, and Jalopnik independently verified it. Royal Enfield now sells more motorcycles in a single year than Harley-Davidson, BMW, KTM, Triumph, and Ducati combined. Those 5 iconic brands collectively move between 800,000 and 900,000 units annually. Royal Enfield moved 1.18 million in 2025 alone. Yes, the majority of those sales are still in India, but the international expansion is undeniable and accelerating. Exports are surging 46%. European market rankings of 1st through 3rd in the segments that matter. A technology center in the English Midlands is designing the next generation. And an electric motorcycle named after a World War II legend is about to arrive on showroom floors, a company that was born in a Victorian needle workshop that armed British paratroopers, that was left for dead in England and reborn half a world away by a 26-year-old nobody believed in. It is now completing a 125-year circle, returning to its homeland with sharper bikes, better pricing, and a global community spanning 66 countries, while the American motorcycle market still barely knows its name. Please hit like and subscribe and turn on notifications. There is a lot more coming, and you are going to want to be here when it drops.